China is pulling the plug on agricultural imports from the United States, leaving America's farmers in a dire situation. With billions of dollars in trade at stake, the biggest market for U.S. agriculture is disappearing, and the fallout is devastating. Farmers are going bankrupt. Businesses tied to the industry are shutting down, and the ripple effects are spreading fast, and it's about to get worse. Incoming President Donald Trump is doubling down on trade wars with China, leaving little hope for recovery. So, what does the future hold for American farmers and the entire agricultural industry? Let's dive in and uncover the full story. The United States has been using tariffs against China in recent years in an attempt to give U.S. companies an advantage in international trade, but it seems this has backfired. From China's perspective, U.S. tariffs were not just about trade. They were part of a larger strategy to block Beijing's rise in high-tech industries such as artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and telecommunications. These sectors are the backbone of the Made in China 2025 initiative, a bold state-driven plan to make China the world's leader in advanced manufacturing. In response, China hit back with tariffs on U.S. agricultural products, targeting key American voters, particularly farmers, to create domestic pressure on the Trump administration for a deal. Instead of relying on U.S. imports, China now sources goods from other countries like Brazil, Argentina, Ukraine, and Australia. For example, Brazil's share of China's soybean imports rose from 46% in 2016 to 76% in 2024, while the U.S.'s share dropped significantly. This change not only affects U.S. farmers, but also reshapes the global trade landscape. To further ensure food security, China has ramped up domestic production and approved genetically modified crops. Beyond economics, there are political and strategic motives behind China's actions. Reducing reliance on U.S. farm imports is part of a larger plan to protect itself from U.S. economic pressures. By diversifying its food sources, China strengthens its self-sufficiency and limits the influence the U.S. might have during trade disputes. This strategy ensures that China's food supply remains stable even if tensions escalate. In January 2025, China approved 5 gene-edited crop varieties along with 12 GM soybean, corn, and cotton varieties. This marks a significant step in China's plan to grow high-yield crops that enhance domestic food production. The approvals aim to address food security challenges while positioning China as a leader in agricultural innovation. Gene-edited crops, including new varieties of soybean, wheat, corn, and rice, work differently from traditional GM crops. Instead of introducing foreign genes, gene editing tweaks the plant's own DNA to improve traits like yield, disease resistance, and climate resilience. This approach is often seen as safer and holds potential for solving global agricultural challenges. Alongside this, China has also approved the import of an insect-resistant and herbicide-tolerant GM soybean variety from German company BASF, but only for processing purposes. This trade war strategy created problems in global markets, forcing companies dependent on Chinese manufacturing to rethink their operations. Some shifted production to countries like Vietnam and Mexico, while others chose to either absorb the increased costs or pass them on to consumers, driving up prices. Interestingly, nations like Vietnam and Mexico saw a surge in manufacturing investments as companies sought alternatives to China. However, this economic boost was overshadowed by widespread uncertainty. The trade war between the United States and China delivered a devastating blow to American farmers, especially those in North Dakota. Farmers faced an overwhelming crisis as crops rotted in storage and machinery sat idle. Over 2,000 family farms were pushed to the brink of financial collapse because of this trade war. China's strategic shift away from U.S. agricultural imports poses a significant threat to America's $175 billion agriculture sector. With China previously accounting for a substantial share of U.S. farm exports, its reduced demand could result in long-term revenue losses across key crops like soybeans, corn, and wheat. This shift not only disrupts the global trade balance, but also leaves U.S. farmers vulnerable to financial instability, jeopardizing the livelihoods of thousands in rural communities. The sharp drop in demand left farmers struggling to cover costs, sparking a wave of bankruptcies and foreclosures that disrupted entire communities. As agriculture formed the backbone of these areas, financial instability hit local businesses, leading to closures, layoffs, and shrinking public services due to reduced tax revenues. In response to the crisis, the U.S. government offered billions of dollars in subsidies to affected farmers. While these payments provided temporary relief, they fell short of fully addressing the losses or tackling the root causes of the problem. For many farmers, the subsidies were seen as unsustainable stopgaps, leaving them uncertain about their long-term viability. Despite these challenges, American farmers have shown resilience by exploring new opportunities and adopting innovative strategies. Some soybean producers, for example, have shifted their focus to emerging markets in Southeast Asia and the Middle East, reducing their reliance on Chinese demand. Additionally, advancements in agricultural technology, GPS-guided equipment, and drones further helped optimize yields and lower costs, while online platforms opened global trade opportunities, bypassing traditional barriers. Despite these efforts, uncertainty looms. While some hope for improved trade relations with China, others fear the damage to their livelihoods and competitive positions may be permanent. Even though alternative buyers have been found, they cannot match China's massive demand, leaving a significant gap in the market that smaller players cannot fill. But how did this problem start? The US-China trade war started in 2018 when US President Donald Trump placed heavy taxes, called tariffs, on goods coming from China. These tariffs affected hundreds of billions of dollars in trade. While this move seemed like an economic decision, it was more than that. It was a clear political message from the US, showing that it wanted to change its relationship with China and challenge its growing economic power. The trade war was caused by three major problems. One of the issues was the claim that China was stealing ideas and technology. But the main problem seemed to be in the amount of Chinese-made goods being sold in the United States. By 2018, the US was buying far more from China than China was buying from the US. The difference, known as a trade deficit, had grown to over $375 billion. This imbalance left many Americans feeling that China was benefiting more from trade than the US, and that American businesses were being treated unfairly. President Donald Trump led the effort to challenge China's practices, supported by key advisors like Robert Lighthizer and Peter Navarro. Lighthizer, the US trade representative, was in charge of setting up negotiations and believed tariffs were the best way to pressure China to change. Navarro, another top advisor, strongly believed that China's actions hurt American workers and industries. Together, they helped shape the US strategy of imposing tariffs and demanding changes. To mitigate the impact of China's retaliatory measures, the Trump administration provided farmers with approximately $28 billion in aid during 2018 to 2019. However, the anticipated growth in Chinese purchases of American agricultural products, projected at $50 billion per year, never materialized. Actual exports amounted to only $13.8 billion, while total export losses during that period reached $27 billion, with $25 billion attributed to China. On the other side, China's government, led by President Xi Jinping, denied all the accusations. China said it was not stealing ideas or forcing technology transfers, but instead accused the US of trying to stop China's growth as a world power. China's chief negotiator, Liu He, tried to reach deals with the US, but the Chinese government refused to make big changes to its policies or look weak in front of its people. As a result, both countries started imposing more tariffs on each other's goods. The US taxed items like steel, electronics, and agricultural products, while China responded by taxing American exports, especially farm goods. These taxes disrupted trade, made goods more expensive, and hurt businesses in both countries. However, the issue goes beyond tariffs alone. China is taking much more ambitious steps to reduce its dependence on the US dollar. One such initiative is the creation of a BRICS grain exchange, which has the potential to fundamentally change the way agricultural trade is conducted worldwide. China is gradually trying to reduce the importance of the US dollar in international trade and finance. One major step is China's promotion of its own currency, the yuan, for international transactions. By 2024, over half of Chinese payments were made in yuan, a big leap from less than 1% in 2010. To encourage this shift, China has set up yuan clearing centers abroad and signed currency swap deals with other nations. At the same time, China has been building its gold reserves and cutting back on its holdings of US Treasury bonds. This helps shield its economy from potential US sanctions and makes the yuan a stronger international currency. China has also issued $140 billion in long-term bonds, with maturities stretching up to 50 years. These funds are aimed at supporting technological development, urban and rural projects, and regional growth. By doing this, China not only strengthens its domestic economy, but also reduces its dependence on dollar-linked financial systems. The idea of a BRICS grain exchange is part of a plan to reduce dependence on Western-controlled grain markets. This initiative could reshape how global agricultural trade is managed. The exchange would bring together major grain producers and consumers, such as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. By setting their own pricing systems, these nations could move away from using Western markets that often rely on US dollars. This would give BRICS countries more control and protect them from global market disruptions. For example, Russia, a key grain and fertilizer supplier, could strengthen its role in global agriculture through this exchange. For the BRICS nations, this exchange promises stable grain supplies, especially during global crises. It also encourages more trade and better infrastructure within the group, making the entire system more resilient. China's agricultural strategies are also closely tied to its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, which expands its influence through trade and infrastructure projects. The BRI also serves as a platform to extend agricultural cooperation with partner nations. China has invested heavily in farming-related infrastructure like food storage, processing plants, and transportation networks in partner countries. These projects make agricultural trade more efficient. In addition, China shares advanced farming technologies with these nations, helping them improve crop production and sustainability. This collaboration benefits both sides, boosting economic development while solidifying China's global partnerships. But will these partnerships set a new standard for international agricultural collaboration? China's efforts in de-dollarization and the BRICS grain exchange are changing the balance of global power. These strategies aim to give China more control over its economic and agricultural future, while reducing reliance on US-dominated systems. Economically, China's investments and trade agreements strengthen its influence in partner nations, creating relationships that can be used strategically. Its leadership in agricultural technology also increases its global reputation, allowing it to set trends and standards. By making its economy more self-reliant, China gains greater freedom to act in international trade and diplomacy, even during periods of tension. In his 2024 campaign, Trump proposed new taxes on American companies that move their production to other countries. For example, he targeted companies like John Deere, which has plans to move operations to Mexico. Trump suggested a 200% tax on these companies as a way to encourage them to stay in the US and protect American jobs. However, some economists warn that such tariffs might break trade agreements, like the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, and could lead to higher prices for American consumers. Trump has also taken a tough stance on trade with China. He promised to increase the trade war if re-elected, suggesting a 10 to 20% tax on all imported goods and up to 60% on Chinese products. His goal is to pressure China into creating fairer trade rules. However, this plan has risks, as China might respond with its own penalties, which could hurt US farmers and the economy overall. While these policies aim to support American farmers and reduce reliance on foreign goods, they come with big challenges. Renewed trade conflicts and disruptions in the economy could make things unpredictable for farmers, who must decide if these protective measures are worth the risk of losing international markets and facing unstable prices. What do you think about these policies? Could they work, or will they backfire? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more insightful content. See you in the next video.